What's up, everyone? Today I got two short stories for you. One is legit and the other is a lie. Let me know which one is which in the comments before the reveal at the end. The Dark Watchers. This story takes place in Santa Lucia Range, California. The Santa Lucia Mountains rise sharply from California's central coast like the spine of some ancient beast. Steep, wind-scarred, and swallowed by the fog that drifts inland from the Pacific each evening. Shadows stretch long and strange across the ridgeline, and for generations those who have walked the hills at dusk have sworn they were never alone. They called them the Dark Watchers. Spirits who stood guard in the high places, silent observers between worlds. Ranchers claimed they saw them while riding the fence line at twilight, towering silhouettes against the fading sky, cloaked in nothing but shadow, unmoving, always at a distance. They never approached, they never spoke, they simply watched. Lucas grew up hearing these stories in his grandmother's kitchen, where candles burned near the window and the curtains fluttered even if the air was still. By 1997, Lucas was a 20-year-old photography major who laughed it off as folklore. With a battered Nikon camera, a backpack full of film, and an obsession with capturing things others overlooked, strange lights, abandoned places, and the quiet corners where myth lingered the longest. He planned a solo 4-day trek along a lesser-used coastal ridge, hoping to photograph some dramatic landscapes. On the first day, the mountains were breathtaking. Golden grass ripping in the ocean wind, hawks circling above ravines, redwoods rising like pillars from deep green shadows. Lucas photographed everything. On the second day, he climbed higher, where the ocean shimmered far below. On the third day, he realized he hadn't seen a human face since entering the range, but he felt watched. Not constantly, just at certain moments, when the wind died suddenly, when the birds stopped mid-song, when the air felt heavy in a way he couldn't explain. He blamed isolation, fatigue. Then came the fourth evening. Lucas stood on an overlook as the sun dipped low and the Pacific burned orange. Across the canyon, on a sharp ridge, something stood where nothing had been moments before. Tall, still, black against the light. Lucas lifted his camera and looked through the zoom lens. That's when he saw a humanoid silhouette. Too long, too narrow, like a man stretched unnaturally tall. No face, no clothing, just darkness shaped like a person. He clicked the shutter, again and again. His heart pounded with excitement. Proof, finally proof. When he looked up, the ridge was empty. He scanned the horizon. Nothing but wind-torn grass and fading sky. He laughed nervously and told himself it must have been a trick of the light. Still, adrenaline buzzed in his veins all night as he replayed the moment. Back at camp, he developed a few frames using a portable kit he carried for field tests. The ridge, the sky, the landscape were all there, but no figures. Lucas sat frozen. He knew what he'd seen. He felt it standing there. The absence in the photos was worse than if it had appeared, like reality itself had been edited without his permission. He didn't sleep. Morning came, gray and cold, fog spilling thick through the valleys. Lucas packed quickly and began hiking down, glancing over his shoulder far more than he'd often like to admit. The trail twisted before opening onto a final overlook. He stopped to drink from his canteen. Something behind him shifted in the air. Lucas turned. On the opposite cliff, less than 200 yards away, stood multiple figures, taller than any human, silhouettes darker than the rock beneath them. They formed a line along the ridge, all facing him, watching. Lucas's breath left his body. He couldn't move. The fog rolled between them, thinning and thickening like a curtain. One figure seemed slightly closer than the others. He raised his camera out of reflex. The viewfinder was empty. When he lowered it, they were still there. Lucas ran. He never looked back. He never went into Santa Lucia Mountains again. Within months, he left California entirely, abandoning photography after he realized he couldn't bring himself to trust the lens anymore. He moved north to Portland, trading film for oil paint, because paint didn't erase things it was told not to see. In the back of his mind, he knows they are watching, always watching. Figure on the stairs. This story takes place in Estes Park, Colorado. Long before tourists lined up in the lobby clutching cameras and whispering about room 217, the hotel sat like a white crown against the dark shoulders of the Rockies. Built in 1909 as a retreat for the wealthy, it was meant to be a sanctuary of air and silence. By the 1970s, the hotel had grown tired. Wallpaper peeled like old scabs, carpets dulled under years of forgotten footsteps, and the great staircase, once a parade of silk gowns and polished shoes, creaked in a hollow, lonely rhythm. After some ghost hunters stayed there and claimed it was haunted, people returned in droves. They came for the history, for the horror, and for proof that the past hadn't left just quite yet. In the spring of 2016, Henry came for all three. He arrived on a whim. Last-minute flight, overnight bag, curiosity buzzing louder than the wind that whipped through Estes Park. The hotel greeted him with chandeliers glowing warm and portraits staring down at him. After dinner, Henry wandered the corridors, taking pictures and capturing history. The grand staircase called to him. He paused at its base, camera ready, waiting for the last group of guests to drift out of frame. The red carpet stretched upward in a perfect curve. No movement, no sound except for the faint hum from the light fixtures. He snapped the photo and walked away. Hours later, the cold found him. Not the crisp mountain chill he expected, but something deeper, an ache in his bones, a feverish trembling that rolled through his body like an unseen hand dragging heat from his skin. He shook in bed, teeth shattering, skin slick with sweat. His companion urged him to seek help, but Henry stubbornly refused. It felt strange, he said later, like he wasn't so much sick as he was drained. He scrolled through his photos to distract himself. There, on the staircase, stood a figure. Small, blurred, a shape leaning near the railing halfway up, not sharply defined, but undeniably human. A child-sized silhouette frozen mid-step, where moments before the stairs had been empty. He stared at it for miles. The next day he posted the image online with a joking caption about ghosts. Within days, the photo spread across the world. Paranormal investigators zoomed and enhanced, pointing out what looked like two figures, one smaller, one faintly behind it. Some believe it was a dead child of a former guest. Others claimed it was a spirit known to roam the staircase, often seen by visitors who felt sudden chills or unexplained sadness. Spirits appear often to draw energy from the living, especially from those sensitive enough to notice them, said paranormal investigator Tim Simmons. The timing was too perfect. The empty staircase, the sudden fever, the ghostly figure materializing in the exact spot where he had stood moments before. Years later, visitors still pause on those stairs, holding their breath before taking a photo. Some swear they feel a tug at their chest, others hear soft footsteps behind them when no one's there. And sometimes, very rarely, an apparition appears halfway up the red carpet, waiting for someone else to lend its strength to be seen again. So in this episode we had The Dark Watchers and Figure on the Stairs. Which one is legit and which one is a lie? The legit one was Figure on the Stairs. This event took place in April of 2016. Henry Yao was staying the night at the Stanley Hotel in Estes Park, Colorado. He waited till the stairwell was clear of people so he could have an unobstructed photo. That evening he felt strangely ill but didn't think anything of it till he looked at the photos the next morning. That's when he noticed the figure on the stairs. Henry believes the spirit within the photograph fed on his life force, reviving itself for a single instance to let him know that there was more after this life.